The 19-year-old alien royal insulted the human, so he turned and walked away without a word. John Carter had never felt nervous in a situation like this. He had faced simulations, drills, and even a zero-gravity training exercise that nearly sent him floating into the walls. Yet here he was, in the grand hall of the Interspecies Academy, standing among humans and aliens alike, and he felt a strange weight in his chest. It was not fear exactly, but an awareness that every eye in the room could see him, and some were already judging him. The hall itself was impressive. Enormous glass walls stretched from floor to ceiling, showing the swirling colors of nebulae far outside the station. Soft lights floated along the edges of the ceiling, casting a calm glow over the crowd. Tables were arranged neatly, with small plates of unfamiliar alien delicacies. Humans tried to make themselves at home, but the subtle differences in gravity, air pressure, and even scent made most of them slightly uncomfortable. John barely noticed any of this. His attention was on the crowd, and more specifically, on the young alien royal who had entered the hall a few minutes before. Lorathi was only 19 by human standards, though for his species that was already considered young adulthood. He had smooth, pale green skin, large violet eyes, and an air of arrogance that seemed to push people away as he walked. A small crown of intricate metal rested on his head, not a heavy crown, but a symbol of his rank. The moment he entered, the chatter in the room quieted. Some aliens bowed, others whispered among themselves, and a few humans looked on with curiosity. John had read about Lorathi in the Academy's briefings, intelligent, clever, and dangerously proud. The ceremony was meant to celebrate the growing cooperation between humans and aliens. Awards were to be given, speeches delivered, and everyone was expected to mingle afterward. John, as an exchange cadet, had been instructed to maintain decorum. He stood near the center of the hall, trying to remain calm and look confident. He had practiced this expression countless times in the mirror back on Earth, neutral, steady, unreadable. Lorathi's eyes met John's almost immediately. John did not flinch. He kept his posture straight, shoulders relaxed, eyes forward. The alien's violet gaze narrowed slightly, and then a smirk crossed his lips. He leaned slightly toward the human next to him and whispered something that made the other aliens laugh quietly. John could not hear the words, but he knew the tone. It was mocking. The smirk widened as Lorathi took a small step forward, placing himself directly in John's line of sight. "Human," Lorathi said clearly, his voice soft but cutting, "do you even belong here? Your species barely lives long enough to finish a single training cycle. How can you hope to achieve anything meaningful?" The words echoed in the hall. A few aliens chuckled, but the humans near John stiffened. Emma Brooks, a fellow cadet, looked shocked. Lucas Hall, another human, frowned and moved closer to John. John felt something rise inside him. A part of him wanted to shout to defend himself, to prove that Lorathi was wrong. But another part of him, a deeper part he had learned to trust, told him to wait, to stay calm, to act carefully. He had been trained to respond to threats with strategy, not emotion. He inhaled slowly, keeping his voice silent and his body steady. Then, without a word, he turned on his heel and walked away. The crowd reacted immediately. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some aliens tilted their heads in confusion. Humans exchanged glances, unsure of what this meant. Lorathi's smirk faltered for a moment, replaced by a flicker of irritation. He had expected a reaction, anger, protest, even embarrassment. John's silence was a puzzle. It was almost disrespectful in a way that no one quite understood. As John walked through the hall, he felt Emma and Lucas fall into step beside him. "John," Emma said quietly, "are you okay? That was bold." John nodded, keeping his eyes forward. "I'm fine." "It doesn't matter what he thinks. We're here to learn, not to argue." Lucas shook his head. "Bold, human, I've never seen anything like it. He insulted you in front of everyone and you just left." John shrugged. "Sometimes saying nothing says more than words. Let him think what he wants. I'm not here to prove myself to someone who already looks down on us." The three of them moved toward a quieter area near the back of the hall. Here, the air smelled less sharp, and the soft hum of the station's engines was a comforting background noise. John leaned against a support beam, glancing out the glass wall at the stars. He wondered if Lorathi would continue to provoke him, or if his silence had already begun to unsettle the young royal. Back in the center of the hall, Lorathi could feel the attention shifting. Whispers about the human cadet who had walked away reached his ears. Some aliens shrugged, uninterested. Others looked thoughtful. The more he tried to maintain control over the situation, the more he realized he could not. John's calm demeanor was a kind of resistance that no insult or display of power could shake. The event continued, but John did not return to the main floor. Instead, he observed from the back, talking quietly with Emma and Lucas about the training schedules, the alien species, and the differences in customs. Every now and then he caught a glimpse of Lorathi, who was speaking with a group of nobles. His eyes would flick toward John, and he would frown, as though the human silence was a personal affront. Hours passed. Awards were given, speeches concluded, and the formal part of the gathering ended. Humans were escorted to their quarters, aliens to their chambers. John and his friends walked slowly through the station's corridors, discussing what had happened. "Do you think he will try something later?" Emma asked. Her voice was quiet, almost nervous. "Maybe," John said, "but we don't need to respond unless we choose to. The important thing is we stay calm and watch." Lucas looked puzzled. "But don't humans usually fight back when insulted?" John smiled faintly. "Not always. Sometimes the strongest response is to walk away. It leaves the other person guessing, and it shows you are not controlled by them." As they reached the human quarters, John felt a sense of relief. He was away from the public gaze, away from the expectations of alien courts, and finally he could rest. Yet even as he sat down on the edge of his bunk, he thought about Lorathi. He realized that the young royal's arrogance could not be corrected by words alone. It would take time, patience, and the quiet strength humans were known for. Later that night, John watched the stars from the observation deck. The nebulae shimmered in brilliant colors, and distant ships moved silently through the void. He thought about his species, small and short-lived compared to the aliens around him, yet determined. He thought about the training, the resilience, and the discipline that had brought humans to space. And he thought about Lorathi, proud and young, unaware of the subtle power of a human who could choose silence over anger. John felt a sense of calm resolve. Tomorrow he would train. He would learn. He would continue to represent humanity without proving anything to anyone who already underestimated him. The insult would fade, but the lesson it carried, for both him and for those who watched, would remain. He had walked away today, but he knew that walking away was only the first step in a longer journey, one that would quietly show the universe what humans were capable of. As the observation deck lights dimmed and the stars swirled beyond the glass, John turned to leave. He did not look for applause, recognition, or even acknowledgement. He had acted as he believed best, and that was enough. The galaxy was wide, and humans were patient. One day, the universe would notice. The day after the formal gathering, John Carter woke early in the human quarters. The hum of the station was familiar now, less intimidating than the day before. Sunlight from distant stars filtered through the observation windows, painting the floor in soft streaks of color. John stretched, feeling the stiffness in his muscles from yesterday's long day. He knew the events of the evening were already spreading through the academy, and he wondered how the alien royal, Lorathi, was reacting now. Emma Brooks arrived shortly after breakfast, carrying a datapad. "Morning, John," she said with a small smile. "You won't believe the rumors going around." John tilted his head. "Rumors?" Emma nodded, settling beside him. "People are saying that you were completely humiliated, that the alien prince embarrassed you in front of everyone and you just ran away. Some of the cadets think you are weak now." John's eyes narrowed slightly. "Ran away," he repeated. "I didn't run, I chose not to fight. There is a difference." Lucas Hall arrived, rubbing his eyes. "And some humans are confused too," he said. "They don't understand why you didn't respond. But Emma, you know humans have different ways of handling insults. Silence can be powerful." Emma smiled. "I think John handled it well, but the gossip is already spreading. Lorathi is probably enjoying every second of it." John shook his head. "Let him think what he wants. It won't matter in the long run." The academy's instructors were aware of the incident and called John in for a private briefing. They explained that some alien cadets had already begun avoiding him, while others seemed curious about his reaction. They did not see it as weakness, but as a strategic choice. John listened carefully, understanding that his silence had caused more impact than any argument could. "Humans have a different approach to conflict," said Captain Riley, the human liaison. "They do not escalate immediately. They observe, wait, and act when necessary." Your behavior yesterday was unusual to the aliens, but it sent a clear message. You are not controlled by their words. John nodded slowly. I understand, sir. I just didn't want to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. Good, Captain Riley replied. That is all we need for now. Continue your training and do not be distracted by rumors. The situation is more about perception than reality. After the briefing, John returned to his quarters. The hallways were quieter than yesterday, but he could sense eyes following him. Some alien cadets whispered as he passed, and a few glanced at him with curiosity rather than mockery. He realized that his silence had unsettled Lorathi more than he could have imagined. In the human training rooms, John met with Emma and Lucas again. They ran simulations together, discussing strategy, teamwork, and the subtle differences between human and alien tactics. John found comfort in the routine. Learning, training, and focusing on skills were ways to regain control over the situation. He understood that showing calm strength was often more effective than words. Meanwhile, Lorathi did not stay idle. He approached several members of the Alien Council, requesting a formal duel or an apology from John. The council members, however, were unsure how to respond. Humans did not engage in challenges or insults in the same way as aliens. They did not demand revenge, and they did not show anger publicly. The council realized that trying to provoke John further might lead to unexpected consequences. Lorathi's frustration grew. He had expected the human to react with embarrassment or anger. Instead, John had quietly removed himself from the situation, leaving Lorathi with no satisfaction. Whispers among the alien cadets indicated that some of them were beginning to respect the human's composure, though no one would admit it openly. John continued his training with steady determination. He studied alien languages, practiced zero-gravity maneuvers, and learned new skills in navigation and strategy. Every interaction was observed carefully. He was aware of the rumors, but he did not let them disturb him. Emma and Lucas often reminded him that patience was a powerful tool. One afternoon, John received an official message from the human instructors. They were transferring him to a new program, the Human Research and Response Unit stationed on the frontier. This program was more demanding, more isolated, and required both mental and physical discipline. John understood the reasoning immediately. Being away from the main academy would allow him to focus on training, while also demonstrating that humans could operate independently of alien approval. The news reached Lorathi through the academy's channels. He was shocked that the human had been reassigned without complaint or argument. The young royal had assumed that his insult would provoke some form of public retaliation, yet John's calm, silent behavior continued to unsettle him. Lorathi realized that the human's departure did not diminish his presence. It reinforced the idea that humans were not easily manipulated. As John prepared for transfer, he walked the halls one last time. Cadets nodded politely, and some whispered quietly. Even the alien instructors seemed uncertain how to address him. John kept his expression neutral. He understood that power often lay not in force, but in control over one's own choices. The transfer to the frontier station was long and quiet. John observed the stars, distant planets, and passing ships. He reflected on human resilience. Humans had survived challenges for centuries by thinking strategically, by choosing when to act and when to wait. The universe was vast, and he realized that reacting to every insult or provocation was not necessary. Silence, observation, and measured action could accomplish far more than immediate confrontation. Upon arrival at the frontier station, John was greeted by the human research team. They were a small group, dedicated to exploration, observation, and maintaining safe contact with alien worlds. Emma and Lucas stayed with him for the first few days, helping him adjust to the new environment. John quickly noticed that this station operated differently from the academy. There were no ceremonies, no large gatherings, only work, observation, and careful planning. John adapted quickly. He learned to operate the observation instruments, to analyze alien communications, and to report findings efficiently. He spent hours practicing maneuvers, reviewing protocols, and developing strategies for potential encounters. He understood that humans did not need to display pride or aggression to demonstrate capability. Quiet competence and patience often spoke louder than any boast. Back at the academy, Lorathi continued to struggle with understanding human behavior. He requested meetings with council members, asking why the human had not responded to his insult. The council reminded him that humans often acted differently from aliens. They waited, they observed, and they acted with purpose. Lorathi found this frustrating. He was accustomed to influence and control, and here was a species that seemed immune to both. Over the following weeks, reports came from the frontier station indicating that humans were withholding certain types of support that the aliens had relied on. Trade assistance, data analysis, and logistical coordination were less accessible. The aliens noticed delays in operations that previously ran smoothly, yet no threat was issued. No anger was declared. Humans simply continued their work independently. Lorathi began to understand a subtle truth. Humans were not reactive in the way he expected. They did not escalate with anger or words. Instead, they acted with patience and choice, showing strength through quiet restraint. Every failed attempt to provoke John reinforced this lesson. The alien royal's arrogance began to falter slightly, replaced with cautious respect. John, unaware of much of this, continued his routines. He trained, observed, and documented findings. He remained polite, focused, and calm. He interacted with aliens only when necessary, never allowing emotions to dictate his actions. Emma occasionally explained the broader context, how human patience could create influence without confrontation. Lucas reinforced this by demonstrating strategic thinking in training exercises. One evening, as John observed a distant system through the station's telescope, he thought about the events at the academy. He remembered Lorathi's smirk, the laughter of the cadets, and the quiet hall where he had simply turned and walked away. At the time, it had felt like a small victory of restraint. Now he realized it was more. It was the beginning of a pattern humans often relied on: calm, deliberate choices that shaped perception and outcomes. He thought of the human species as a whole. Small in numbers compared to many alien civilizations, short-lived by some measures and physically weaker than others, yet persistent, disciplined, and patient. Humans could survive and adapt because they chose when to act, when to speak, and when to remain silent. John understood that this was not arrogance but strategy. Far away, Lorathi struggled to comprehend it. He had tried every tactic known to him to provoke or humiliate the human. Insults, challenges, and public displays of superiority all failed. No argument, no gesture, no mockery changed John's demeanor. The alien royal realized that respect could not be forced, and that human patience was a subtle but formidable form of strength. John's days on the frontier passed steadily. He observed alien systems, documented anomalies, and learned to work with limited resources. He had no need for public approval or recognition. The silence of the station, the hum of the engines, and the glow of distant stars became a comfortable rhythm. He understood that true strength often worked quietly, unnoticed, and that patience was a powerful tool against pride and arrogance. By the end of the second week, John was no longer concerned with rumors or alien perceptions. He focused on skill, learning, and observation. Emma and Lucas supported him, reminding him that humans acted with purpose, not emotion. The alien royal's attempts at provocation seemed increasingly futile, and John found a quiet satisfaction in knowing that restraint could have more impact than confrontation. Even as the frontier station continued its routine, John realized that his actions at the academy had already begun to influence perceptions. Some aliens now regarded him with cautious respect, though few would admit it openly. Lorathi, once confident in his superiority, had learned that humans were unpredictable, patient, and disciplined. John understood that change would not be immediate, but every observation, every calm decision, and every silent choice contributed to a larger understanding. As the day ended, John watched the stars shift and swirl. He thought about patience, restraint, and human strategy. The universe was wide, full of challenges, and filled with species that measured power differently. John smiled faintly, knowing that humans had a quiet way of demonstrating strength that few truly understood. Walking away yesterday had not been an end. It was only the first step in a journey that would quietly, steadily, and decisively show the universe the value of restraint, patience, and quiet determination. John Carter settled into life on the frontier station with steady determination. Each day followed a rhythm of observation, analysis, and training. He had learned to navigate the smaller, human-controlled corridors of the station, operate its complex instruments, and communicate efficiently with other humans and selected alien collaborators. The isolation was a challenge at first, but John soon realized that it gave him time to think, to plan, and to strengthen the quiet confidence that had carried him through the incident at the academy. Emma Brooks had returned to the main station for other assignments, but stayed in frequent contact through the station's secure channels. Lucas Hall remained with John for a few more weeks to help him acclimate, and together they worked on exercises that tested both skill and patience. "Humans have a different kind of strength," Lucas said one morning as they ran a simulation involving alien interference. "It isn't loud or flashy, it's slow, careful, and deliberate. That's why yesterday's silence mattered," John nodded. "It's easy to underestimate. Most aliens think you respond immediately to insults, but restraint creates space to act where they cannot." Their training was interrupted occasionally by reports from the academy. Lorathi had begun requesting updates on human activity. The young alien royal was impatient. His attempts to provoke John had failed publicly, and now he hoped to learn more about the humans' behavior in private or through indirect means. Council members reminded him that humans often acted in ways aliens could not predict. Patience, observation, and deliberate choice were weapons in their own right. John paid little attention to these reports at first. He had no need to respond immediately. The frontier station required focus. He spent hours observing alien systems, noting their movement, their communication patterns, and any signs of unusual activity. Every observation was recorded carefully. Mistakes could be costly, especially in regions where interstellar traffic was dense or unexplored. John's ability to remain calm and methodical, even under pressure, strengthened his reputation among the human crew. Back at the academy, Lorathi's frustration grew. He had expected some sign of human weakness, yet John remained consistent. The alien royal had tried insults, public displays, and even challenges sent through diplomatic channels. Each attempt failed. John neither acknowledged nor reacted. The silence was maddening. It was not disrespectful in a conventional sense, but it was powerful in a way that Lorathi could not control. Some alien cadets whispered among themselves. "He does not respond," one said quietly. "What kind of creature is this? We cannot manipulate him with words or gestures." Others observed from a distance, curious and cautious. For the first time, the Academy's alien students began to realize that human patience was not weakness, but a deliberate form of strength. John's days continued with steady progress. He learned to operate alien communication devices, decipher patterns in data, and handle emergency simulations that tested both his intellect and reflexes. The frontier station had limited support, so he often worked independently. This independence required focus and patience. It also reinforced the human approach of measured response. Act when necessary, observe when possible, and never allow emotion to dictate action. One afternoon, a minor anomaly was detected near a nearby system. Sensors showed unusual activity in a sector typically used for trade between alien worlds. John analyzed the data carefully. While some might have assumed immediate action or alerted the aliens at once, he chose to observe further. The anomaly did not appear hostile, but its patterns suggested a shift in activity that required careful monitoring. Lucas noticed John's approach. "You're taking your time," he said. "Won't the aliens be suspicious?" John shook his head. "If we react too quickly, they may think we are weak or afraid. Observing quietly gives us control. The moment we act, we decide how to shape the outcome." Emma, monitoring remotely, agreed. "Patience is our advantage. They expect immediate responses, but we think ahead." While John monitored the anomaly, Lorathi received another report. Human actions, or in this case deliberate inaction, continued to unsettle the alien court. Trade shipments were delayed, updates from human scientists were slower, and cooperation in joint projects was noticeably restrained. All of this occurred without confrontation or threat. Humans acted, but always on their terms. Lorathi was forced to reflect. He realized that John's behavior was part of a broader pattern. Humans could choose when to engage and when to remain silent. They were disciplined, consistent, and patient. Attempts to manipulate or provoke them were largely ineffective. The young royal began to sense that the human's calm was more powerful than any anger or force he could display. John's focus on the anomaly revealed subtle details over several days. He discovered that alien freighters were rerouting in unexpected ways, seemingly avoiding certain regions. Sensors indicated minor adjustments in communication patterns, as if someone were quietly observing the system. John documented everything carefully. The frontier station's protocols required verification before reporting to alien authorities, and John adhered to this with precision. As he worked, he thought about the Academy and Loratha's insults. The event seemed distant now, yet its lessons were clear. Humans did not need to fight to demonstrate strength. Calm observation, careful documentation, and measured response were equally effective, often more so. John felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that restraint could have a larger effect than immediate confrontation. One evening, while reviewing data from the anomaly, John received a brief communication from the Human Council. They instructed him to continue observation and to withhold reports from the Alien Academy unless necessary. The message was clear. The human species had recognized the potential impact of patience and deliberate action. John understood. Silence, in this case, was a tool of influence, not avoidance. Back at the Academy, Lorathi struggled to understand. Every time he sought attention or response from John, he was met with calm observation. The alien royal had expected reaction, confrontation, or embarrassment, but nothing came. Whispers among the alien cadets indicated growing respect, though few dared admit it openly. Even council members acknowledged that human patience was a formidable strategy. John continued to monitor the anomaly for weeks. He observed shifts in alien movement, noted changes in trade patterns, and carefully recorded every detail. No immediate action was required, but the information he gathered became invaluable. Humans were demonstrating strength not through dominance, but through careful, deliberate observation. Emma, monitoring remotely, sent a message one morning. "John, you're doing exactly what you should. Patience and careful action give us control. Keep documenting everything." John replied briefly, "Understood. Action will come only when necessary." The frontier station became a place of quiet diligence. Humans worked steadily, efficiently, and independently. Their patience unsettled some aliens who were accustomed to immediate displays of emotion or authority. Humans showed a different kind of power, one that relied on observation, restraint, and disciplined action. Lorathi attempted one final test. He sent a message through diplomatic channels, subtly mocking the human station for being slow, inefficient, and unprepared. The council expected John to react, to defend the human station, or to engage in debate. John, however, ignored the message, continuing his work as usual. The silence spoke louder than any words. As days turned into weeks, the anomaly resolved quietly. No conflict arose, no mistakes were made. John's careful observation had allowed humans to understand the situation fully, without rash action or confrontation. The alien royal, watching from a distance, realized that human patience had achieved what arrogance and insult could not. John reflected on the situation as he reviewed his data. The lesson was clear. Humans did not need to escalate to demonstrate capability. Silence, observation, and careful action often had more influence than confrontation or words. He understood that his initial choice at the Academy, to walk away without a word, was only the beginning. Patience and restraint were powerful tools that shaped perception, control, and outcomes. Lorathi, forced to reconsider his assumptions, began to understand that humans were unpredictable in ways other species could not easily measure. Their strength was subtle, quiet, and disciplined. Every failed attempt to provoke John reinforced the lesson. Humans acted with purpose, and that purpose was not easily swayed by insult or pride. John continued his work at the frontier, calm and focused. The anomaly, now resolved, served as a reminder that deliberate action and careful observation were effective strategies. He did not need recognition, applause, or approval. The universe was wide, full of unpredictable species and full of challenges. Humans had the patience to observe, the discipline to act at the right moment, and the strength to wait for outcomes without immediate response. As the sun of a distant star dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the frontier station, John stood at the observation deck. He looked at the distant systems, thinking about the human species, patience, and restraint. He knew that Larathi and other alien observers were slowly learning a valuable lesson. Human strength was not always visible in bold displays. It was quiet, consistent, and carefully measured. It was a strength that could not be forced, argued with, or rushed. John smiled faintly. The galaxy was vast, filled with species eager to show dominance or superiority. Humans had no need to compete in that way. They had other tools: patience, careful action, and quiet observation. He knew that this was only the beginning of a longer journey, one in which human resilience and discipline would quietly shape the perception of the universe. As the lights of the frontier station glowed softly, John returned to his console. More data awaited, more patterns to observe, and more subtle decisions to make. He had learned that silence, patience, and calm focus could have a larger impact than any argument, insult, or show of pride. The human way was slow, deliberate, and strong, and the universe was already beginning to notice John Carter had settled into a routine at the frontier station. Each day began with careful observation of nearby systems, analysis of alien communication patterns, and detailed documentation of trade routes. The station was quiet but busy. Humans worked steadily, without the need for dramatic displays, and their calm efficiency had begun to create subtle shifts in the way nearby alien factions operated. Reports from the frontier indicated small, almost imperceptible disruptions in previously smooth operations. Trade shipments that had once arrived on time were now delayed. Exploratory missions took longer to reach their destinations. Minor coordination errors appeared in areas where humans had previously assisted. Yet no warning, no threat, and no anger was issued. Humans acted independently and quietly. John observed all of this with careful attention. He knew the patterns were not accidents. They were consequences of human restraint. The moment humans withdrew active cooperation or delayed action, the aliens experienced the effects. The frontier became a living lesson in the quiet power of choice. Laratha's irritation grew as reports reached him. He had assumed that humans would act immediately, either to defend themselves or to negotiate. Instead, John and his team worked calmly, observing, recording, and choosing their moments carefully. Every delay, every withdrawal of cooperation was like a silent statement. The young royal realized he had underestimated the human species. Some alien cadets began whispering to each other. "The humans are not reacting like we expected," one said. "It is strange, they do not show pride, anger, or weakness. They simply continue." Larathi, frustrated, tried again to provoke action. He requested explanations for the slow trade, pointed out the gaps in coordination, and even sent minor insults through diplomatic channels. Every time, the human response was the same: calm, measured, silent observation. The alien royal began to understand that humans had control not through force or words, but through deliberate inaction. John, meanwhile, continued his work at the frontier. He carefully monitored anomalies in traffic patterns, trade schedules, and communications. He coordinated with other human stations, ensuring that all human operations maintained efficiency without unnecessary attention. Every choice he made was deliberate, with the goal of observing, learning, and documenting. Emma Brooks contacted him regularly. "John," she said during one check-in, "the aliens are starting to notice. The lack of immediate reaction is making them uneasy. Patience is becoming our strength." John nodded, understanding fully. They expect reaction. When we do not give it, they are forced to rethink their assumptions. It is more effective than any confrontation. Over several weeks, the cumulative effects of human restraint became more apparent. Alien leaders began to notice that certain projects, previously dependent on human guidance, were slowing down. Minor delays, small errors, and missed opportunities created tension. No human had raised their voice, no threat was issued, yet the situation was clear. Human cooperation could not be taken for granted. Larathi felt a growing unease. He had always believed that his insults, pride, and position could influence others. Yet here was a species that did not respond to his usual tactics. His attempts to dominate or belittle humans had failed. The quiet power of restraint, the patient observation, and the deliberate choice to act only when necessary had created consequences that the alien court could not ignore. One morning, John noticed an unusual pattern in the alien trade routes. Shipments that had been predictable for months were suddenly rerouted. While the change was subtle, it indicated that alien systems were adjusting to the absence of human input. John carefully recorded the information and sent a summarized report to human command. No panic, no alarm, just precise observation and documentation. Lorathi, learning of the disruptions, requested explanations from his advisors. "Why are they not responding?" he asked, frustration evident in his voice. "This human should be reacting." Instead, everything seems calm, yet our plans are failing without anyone confronting us. An older alien counselor shook his head. "Young prince, humans do not act as we do. Their patience is their strength. They choose when to act and when to remain silent. We cannot manipulate them with insults or challenges. Their calm is deliberate, and it has consequences you are only beginning to understand." Loratha's face flushed with embarrassment. He realized he had misjudged not only John, but humanity as a whole. The consequences of human restraint were clear. Actions that seemed simple or routine had far-reaching effects when combined with patience and careful observation. Every minor disruption in trade, every delay in coordination, was a lesson in human strategy. Back at the frontier, John continued his routines. He observed, trained, and coordinated human operations. He occasionally analyzed alien communications, noting shifts in tone and strategy. Each report he compiled demonstrated the power of quiet patience. Humans were not reactive, they were deliberate. They acted when necessary, and their choice to withdraw support or delay action created subtle but effective consequences. Lucas Hall, still stationed with John, remarked one day, "It is fascinating. The aliens are noticing the effects of our patience, but they cannot understand it fully. It is not just our actions, it is our restraint that creates influence." John nodded. "Restraint is often stronger than aggression. Patience shapes perception and outcomes without confrontation. That is the lesson we are teaching quietly." The alien court grew increasingly uneasy. Lorathi attempted to assert his authority, issuing demands and instructions, but the humans did not respond as expected. Each ignored request, each delayed cooperation, became a message louder than any words could convey. The young royal began to grasp that respect could not be forced. It had to be earned, and human patience was a form of quiet power that could not be rushed. Reports from other human stations indicated similar patterns. Humans acted deliberately, observing carefully, and choosing the precise moment to intervene. Minor disruptions in previously coordinated alien operations occurred without warning, yet no human aggression or argument accompanied them. The effect was subtle but undeniable. Humans could influence outcomes without confrontation. John reflected on the situation one evening as he observed distant systems through the station's observation deck. The stars shimmered in colors that no human eyes had seen before, and distant ships moved in predictable patterns. He thought about the events at the academy, Loratha's insult, and the calm decision to walk away. That moment had been the beginning of a larger lesson. Humans acted with patience, quiet strength, and deliberate choice. Emma's voice came through the secure channel. "John, you are doing exactly what we hoped. The effects are spreading. The aliens are beginning to reconsider their assumptions about us. Your calm approach is proving more powerful than any confrontation could have been." John smiled faintly. "It is not about proving anything. It is about being deliberate, observing carefully, and choosing when to act. Strength lies in patience as much as in action." Lorathi, receiving updates from the court, began to understand the magnitude of the situation. His initial confidence had been misplaced. Humans did not react with pride, anger, or fear. They acted when necessary, and their inaction in certain matters had consequences that were already reshaping alien operations. The young royal had underestimated the quiet power of a species that measured strength differently. Back at the frontier, John continued monitoring systems. Small anomalies appeared, but each was addressed with careful observation and measured response. No unnecessary risks were taken, no impulsive decisions made. Humans demonstrated that restraint was not weakness, but a deliberate form of influence. Loratha's attempts to regain control grew desperate. He issued new directives, demanded explanations, and attempted minor provocations. Each failed. The alien court advised him to be patient, but he was unaccustomed to such a form of power. Human patience was not passive. It was active, deliberate, and effective. John, unaware of the full extent of Lorath's frustration, remained focused on his work. He trained, documented, and coordinated human operations efficiently. His calm demeanor and careful observation continued to shape the situation, not through words or threats, but through deliberate, patient action. The consequences were visible in subtle ways, yet powerful in effect. As days turned into weeks, the cumulative impact of human restraint became clear. Trade disruptions, slowed communication, and minor operational inefficiencies created tension within alien factions. No human had raised their voice or issued threats, yet the results were undeniable. Human choice, deliberate action, and quiet observation had created influence without confrontation. John stood at the observation deck one evening, watching the distant stars. He thought about the alien royal, Lorathi, and the lessons of patience, restraint, and deliberate action. The universe was full of species eager to assert dominance and demand respect, yet humans demonstrated that true strength could be subtle, quiet, and strategic. He understood that his calm response to an insult, the decision to walk away at the academy, had been the beginning of a longer, more subtle influence. Humans acted not through immediate confrontation, but through measured observation and deliberate choice. The quiet power of restraint had begun to shape alien perceptions, and the effect would continue to grow. John smiled faintly, knowing that the journey was far from over. Patience, careful action, and observation were tools of influence that few species truly understood. Human strength was quiet, deliberate, and consistent. The universe was watching, and slowly, carefully, it was learning what humans were capable of. John Carter continued his work at the frontier station, now more confident than ever in the quiet power of patience and deliberate action. Months had passed since the incident at the academy, and the effects of human restraint had become increasingly visible. Trade routes were slower, communications less predictable, and alien operations that once relied on human assistance now faced subtle disruptions. No human had issued threats or raised their voice, yet the consequences were undeniable. Emma Brooks contacted him regularly. "John, the reports from the academy show that aliens are noticing the effects of our patience. Your calm approach is reshaping their expectations. Keep observing and documenting everything." John nodded as he reviewed the latest data. He had learned to distinguish between minor anomalies and patterns that indicated larger shifts. His team on the frontier station worked efficiently, quietly, and with precise coordination. No one sought recognition, yet their actions were having far-reaching effects. Lorathi, meanwhile, struggled with the changes he could not control. He had attempted every method he knew to provoke John or disrupt human operations. Insults, public challenges, even indirect manipulations had all failed. Human patience, discipline, and calm observation had created a situation he could not easily influence. He began to understand that humans measured strength differently, relying on choice, restraint, and deliberate action rather than pride or arrogance. One day, John noticed a cluster of trade vessels behaving unusually. They were rerouting in response to minor shifts in human assistance, which had previously gone unnoticed. He recorded every detail, analyzing patterns and predicting possible outcomes. His calm, methodical approach ensured that no detail was overlooked and that the humans' influence continued quietly but effectively. Lucas Hall remarked, "It is fascinating, John. The aliens have no idea how much influence we have simply by choosing when to act and when to wait." John nodded. "They expect immediate responses, but patience creates control. It shapes perception and forces them to reconsider their assumptions." Back at the academy, Lorathi convened a council meeting. He presented reports of the slow trade, delayed communications, and minor failures in coordination. The council listened carefully. One elder alien, speaking softly, said, "You have underestimated their patience. Humans act deliberately, not emotionally. They are teaching us a lesson in quiet power." Lorathi's face flushed. He realized that the humans' initial silence at the academy had been only the beginning. Walking away without a word had been a small action, yet its effects had grown steadily. Humans demonstrated influence not through confrontation, but through calm, deliberate choices. The lesson was clear. Respect could not be demanded, and strength did not always show itself loudly. John, unaware of the council discussions, continued his observation. He documented changes, adjusted schedules, and ensured that human operations remained efficient. Every action was measured, deliberate, and precise. He did not seek recognition or approval, but the consequences of his work were already shaping the galaxy's perception of humanity. Emma communicated with him about a new development. John Lorathi has begun to consult the Council more cautiously. They are noticing that human restraint is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and effective. John replied simply, "Patience is powerful when combined with careful observation. Action at the right time is more effective than reaction at the wrong time." Lorathi attempted one final approach to regain influence. He requested meetings, sent subtle instructions, and tried to provoke responses from humans in adjacent sectors. Every attempt was met with calm observation, precise documentation, and carefully measured responses. The young royal realized that humans did not need to fight to assert strength. Their quiet competence and deliberate choices created consequences that reshaped operations without confrontation. At the frontier station, John received a minor anomaly report from a distant system. He analyzed the data carefully, recognizing patterns that indicated potential instability. Instead of immediate intervention, he chose to observe further, ensuring that any action taken would be strategic and effective. His calm, deliberate approach ensured that the situation could be resolved efficiently when the right moment arrived. Emma sent another message. "John, the aliens are beginning to understand that we act with purpose, not emotion. Your calm approach is teaching them a lesson in human patience and discipline." John smiled faintly. "They will learn that restraint is not weakness, it is a form of strength." Weeks passed, and the cumulative effects of human patience became evident. Alien operations experienced delays, minor disruptions, and unexpected challenges. Yet no human had raised their voice, threatened anyone, or acted impulsively. The consequences of restraint were clear, and the alien court began to reassess its assumptions about humanity. Lorathi, facing repeated failures to provoke or influence humans, called a personal council meeting. He admitted, reluctantly, that the humans' initial silence at the academy had grown into a larger demonstration of quiet power. The council discussed the implications. Humans acted deliberately, observed carefully, and chose their moment strategically. Every withdrawal of cooperation, every delay, and every careful observation was a lesson in influence without confrontation. John, continuing his work at the frontier, noticed subtle changes in alien behavior. Some alien ships adjusted routes to compensate for the lack of human support. Communication patterns became more cautious. Minor operational errors arose where human influence had previously provided stability. The quiet power of humans had become apparent, even to those who had initially underestimated them. Lucas remarked one evening, "John, the frontier has changed because of your calm approach." Even the aliens are learning that patience and careful action have consequences. John nodded. Quiet strength is often more effective than loud displays. Patience forces others to rethink their assumptions and respect the choices we make. Lorathi, observing from a distance, finally understood the lesson. Humans did not need to shout, threaten, or boast to demonstrate power. They acted with precision, patience, and deliberate choice. Every failure to provoke a reaction, every careful observation, and every measured response had created influence far beyond what he had imagined. The young royal realized that humans' quiet competence was more powerful than arrogance or pride. At the frontier station, John completed the analysis of the latest anomalies. He submitted reports to human command, documented patterns, and continued observation. His work had no immediate drama, no confrontation, and no recognition, yet the effects were undeniable. Humans had demonstrated strength through patience, deliberate action, and quiet observation. The universe was noticing. Emma contacted him once more. "John, the Council has acknowledged the impact of human restraint. Lorathi is beginning to act with caution, and other alien factions are reassessing their strategies. Your calm approach has taught them a lesson in respect and patience." John replied simply, "Humans do not need to force respect. It is earned through choices and action. Restraint is as strong as any display of power." Lorathi, humbled by the realization, approached the council with a new attitude. He admitted that humans had taught him an important lesson. Strength was not always visible in loud displays. Restraint, patience, and deliberate action could create influence and command respect in ways that pride and arrogance could not. Back at the frontier, John continued his daily routine. He observed, documented, and trained. The station hummed with quiet efficiency. Every decision was deliberate, every action measured, and every moment of observation contributed to a larger understanding. Humans had demonstrated that true power often lay in patience and discipline, not confrontation. As the sun of a distant star rose over the horizon, John stood at the observation deck, looking at the distant systems. He thought about the academy, Loratha's insult, and the calm decision to walk away. That single choice had grown into a larger influence, demonstrating the quiet strength of humanity. The lesson was clear. Restraint, patience, and deliberate action could shape outcomes, influence others, and command respect without confrontation. John smiled faintly. He knew the journey was far from over, but the effects were already visible. Humans had proven that quiet competence, patience, and careful observation could achieve what force, pride, or insults could not. The universe was watching, learning, and slowly, deliberately, recognizing the subtle but powerful influence of humanity. In the end, Lorathi understood fully. Humans were unpredictable in ways other species could not easily measure. They acted deliberately, observed patiently, and chose their moments strategically. Their strength lay not in loud demonstrations, but in quiet, disciplined competence. The young alien royal had learned a lesson he would never forget. Underestimating humans was a mistake, and their true power was measured not by reaction, but by deliberate choice. John returned to his work at the frontier station, calm and focused. Observation, training, and careful documentation continued. The station operated efficiently, and the humans' influence spread quietly through the systems they monitored. No boast, no confrontation, only deliberate, measured action. The galaxy had noticed. As the stars shifted and distant ships passed silently, John reflected on everything that had happened. A single insult, a calm choice to walk away, and months of patient observation had demonstrated the quiet strength of humanity. The lesson was simple but profound. Humans acted with purpose, patience, and discipline, and those who underestimated them learned the true measure of their power. John smiled once more, turning from the observation deck to continue his work. The universe was wide, full of unpredictable species and full of challenges. Humans had the patience to observe, the discipline to act at the right time, and the quiet strength to influence outcomes without confrontation. The lesson of the silent human who walked away without a word had been taught, and the galaxy would not forget it.